Hey guys, it's Saturday, and that means it's time for me to talk about an episode of an animated superhero series. And today, I talk about an episode of the second season of the Legion of Superheroes cartoon titled Trials. Before I get into actually reviewing this episode, allow me to quickly sum up the plot for those who maybe haven't seen the episode. And if you haven't seen the episode and you don't want to get spoiled, then flee while you still have time. This episode opens on Magic World with the juvenile delinquent magic user we saw in Season 1. He is being punished for something, and his magic is being taken away from him. Then an ancient wizard named Mordru appears, and he wants revenge on the council for attempting to take his magic from him. He apparently found another way to use magic, and is now wreaking havoc on Magic World. One of the counselors teleports the juvenile delinquent kid to the Legion of Superheroes, where the kid asks them for help in rescuing his planet. The Legion all decide to go and fight Mordru, but Superman from the future is assigned to go with the kid to help him get his magic back, by fighting through various trials to determine if he is worthy or not. The kid passes all of his trials, and then he and Superman from the future come back to fight Mordru, who has taken over all of the Legionnaires' minds. With the power of teamwork, the kid and Superman of the future are able to prevail, and the day is saved once again thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. So I've talked about some astoundingly bad episodes in this series, but I think this one just about takes the cake. Once again, we have the Legion of Superheroes casually living a normal life, even though for a few months now, Imperiex has supposedly been a blight on this time period, corrupting the time stream as we were told would happen in the season premiere, and he hasn't done anything even kinda like that. At this point, I am convinced that the Legion is purposely letting Imperiex get away every time they fight him, just because they are bored and they need something to keep them occupied. Because this villain is so incredibly incompetent, the Legion of Substitute Heroes could make short work of him. But he doesn't actually show up in this episode. But it remains a problem when, for this entire season, he was played as being as scary as Satan himself, and he's not even as scary as a Disney comic relief sidekick. Anyway, what else is bad about this episode? I would have to say the premise itself is just not very interesting. I didn't especially care about the episode that introduced Magic World in Season 1, and even though this is maybe just a smidge better than that episode, that is kinda like saying that stepping in a pile of feces is not as bad as rolling in a field of it. Neither is very good, even if one is preferable to the other. I think what is so problematic about bringing back this magical punk from Season 1 is that it is so very clear that the people behind this show had nothing to say with this kid. It's one thing when I watch this episode and I realize that I don't have a whole lot to say because nothing really happened. But it's another thing entirely when it feels like the episode only exists because the season needs to have 13 episodes and they couldn't think of a better way to get to episode 13, so they threw a bunch of stuff together and got this episode. If you think I'm exaggerating, let me assure you I really am not. The plot is really not any more complicated than what I explained earlier. The entire episode alternates between meaningless fights between Mordru and the Legion and Superman and the kid going through challenges. You could cut half of this episode out and the plot would not change at all. And what would be left, there really wouldn't be that much of a plot there. The whole episode is just the magic kid learning that teamwork is good. And this wouldn't be bad if this kid was going to be an ongoing presence in this series or something like that, and we could see how he's gone from one extreme to learning and maturing a little bit. But that's not going to happen. This series has 3 more episodes left, and I bet everything that I own that this is the last time that we ever see this kid. So that makes this character arc kind of a waste of time. And really, I think the fact that I knew that this was one of the last episodes of the series kinda affected my enjoyment a great deal. I assumed that at some point in this series, Imperiex would eventually become the threat that we were told he was capable of being, but he hasn't done that at all, and in one of the last chances that he gets, we get a filler episode that doesn't even feature Imperiex at all. I would bet you money that if this season was more like season 1 and there wasn't really an arc to speak of and it was just a whole bunch of more or less unconnected episodes, then I wouldn't have hated this episode as much. But because this season is pretending like it has some grand story that it is building toward, and so far it has not done anything like that at all, when we get an episode that has nothing to do with anything and can be excised without anyone even noticing that it was gone, that makes me hate this episode much, much more. But wait, you may be saying, the previous episode of this series was also a standalone episode that had nothing to do with the overall arc. True, but that episode was actually enjoyable. This one, not so much. We have a villain whose motivations are non-existent. We have a protagonist who went from being an annoying menace to all of society to somehow being a kid who learns the value of teamwork in 20 minutes or less. We have Superman from the future at his dumbest point so far, where the kid tries to teach him a simple magic spell because his powers aren't working anymore for some reason, and he can't even pronounce the very basic words. It was funny when Joey Tribbiani could not pronounce French words on Friends, but it's just stupid and annoying when Superman cannot say a magic spell until just the right moment in this episode of the Legion of Superheroes. Guys, there was a time when I enjoyed this series, but aside from last episode's reprieve, I cannot remember when I was actually having fun watching this show. At this point, I want to stop watching this show just because it is 50 Shades of Stupid, but I will keep going because there's only 3 episodes left. So that's it for this review, guys. Did you enjoy this episode? Even if you did not, you probably enjoyed it more than I did. If you did enjoy this episode, tell me why in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to come back next week when I will be talking about an episode of Batman the Animated Series. And the week after that, I'll be one step closer to finishing up this abomination of a series. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.